Tens of millions of years ago, Europe looked nothing like the continent we recognize today. Back in the Cretaceous period, it was a vast archipelago of tropical islands, lush and teeming with diverse ecosystems. The continental plates were still shifting, and a shallow, warm sea, the Tethys Sea, dominated the landscape, separating these islands from one another. These islands, varying in size from large masses to small, lonely landforms, formed a network stretching across what is now parts of modern-day Romania, France, Spain, and more. Among these was an island of considerable size and unique characteristics, Hateg Island, located in the vicinity of modern-day Romania. Surrounded by these tropical seas, Hateg Island thrived as an isolated piece of land, essentially cut off from the mainland for millions of years. This isolation had a profound impact on the development of its ecosystem, allowing it to foster an environment that, in some respects, seemed like a microcosm of the greater Cretaceous world. Its surroundings were shaped by a mixture of conditions, both geographic and climatic, that made it more akin to modern tropical islands in the Caribbean or Southeast Asia. Hateg was located just above the equator, placing it in a warm and humid climate. This location meant that the island experienced an average temperature that was higher than most of Europe today, resulting in a landscape filled with lush forests, lakes, and rivers. These bodies of water were crucial to the survival of the island's residents, providing fresh water and supporting a diverse range of flora. Dense tropical foliage dominated the landscape, similar to what one might find in parts of today's Southeast Asia or the Caribbean. There were also open woodlands and savanna-like clearings where various prehistoric plants, such as cycads and ferns, flourished. The island itself was not small by any means. At its peak, Hateg measured about 80,000 square kilometers, comparable in size to the modern island of Hispaniola, which houses Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Despite its considerable size, Hateg was marooned in the Tethys Sea, surrounded by water on all sides. This isolation created a world where animals had to adapt to survive with limited resources, leading to a range of unique evolutionary developments. Geographically, Hateg was not alone in its isolation. Other nearby land masses, such as the Iberian Peninsula, Sardinia, Ireland, and Austria, were part of this ancient European archipelago. Although these land masses may seem distant from each other today, during the late Cretaceous period, they were part of a fragmented Europe that was interconnected by the warm, shallow seas. Hateg was situated relatively close to these European masses, yet still far enough to be fully isolated by the surrounding waters. These waters were teeming with their own forms of life, from mosasaurs to plesiosaurs, adding an aquatic dimension to the isolation of Hateg's terrestrial inhabitants. This isolation of Hateg had profound implications on its ecosystem. The creatures that lived on the island were subject to unique evolutionary pressures. The lack of large predators and the scarcity of certain resources led to a phenomenon known as insular dwarfism, where species adapted by becoming smaller in size. On the other hand, certain species flourished and grew to gigantic proportions due to a lack of competition. Hateg became a breeding ground for these evolutionary anomalies, where animals that would have faced extinction or competition on the mainland found a niche in this isolated environment. The seas around Hateg were not just natural boundaries, they were also rich ecosystems in their own right. Marine reptiles like mosasaurs, some growing up to the size of modern whales, patrolled the shallow waters. Their presence made crossing the waters near Hateg perilous for land-dwelling creatures, effectively cutting the island off from other land masses. With predators lurking in every direction, there was no easy escape for any animal that might find itself on the island. This combination of geographic isolation, tropical climate, and unique marine surroundings made Hateg Island an ecological and evolutionary experiment. It provided a fertile ground for species to evolve in surprising and unexpected ways, resulting in a complex web of life where the lines between predator and prey and giant and dwarf were blurred. The isolation of Hateg created an environment where the typical rules of evolution no longer applied. As the sea levels fluctuated and the island shifted due to tectonic movements, new species continued to emerge, each more adapted to the unique environment of Hateg. The island's remoteness and geographic peculiarities led to adaptations that set it apart from other regions in Europe and, indeed, the world. While Hateg Island was shaped by its environment, the creatures that inhabited it were molded by its unique conditions. One of the most intriguing consequences of the island's isolation was the emergence of insular dwarfism, a phenomenon where animals evolved to smaller sizes due to limited resources. Hateg was a natural laboratory for this phenomenon, and nowhere was it more apparent than in the island's population of dinosaurs and large herbivores. On mainland continents, herbivorous dinosaurs such as sauropods grew to immense sizes, often exceeding 100 feet in length and weighing as much as 40 tons. These titanic giants roamed freely, their massive frames supported by an abundance of vegetation and water. However, on Hateg Island, things were very different. The limited availability of resources and the island's confined space forced these normally massive creatures to adapt by shrinking in size. One of the most notable examples of this phenomenon on Hateg was the dwarf sauropod Magyarosaurus. This miniature giant was only about 20 feet long, roughly the size of a large horse, making it one of the smallest sauropods known in the fossil record. Unlike their continental relatives, which needed to consume vast amounts of food to sustain their massive bodies, these island-dwelling sauropods were better suited to the sparse resources available on Hateg. Paleontologists believe that the scarcity of food led to these dinosaurs evolving to be smaller, thereby requiring less sustenance to survive. This adaptation was crucial to their survival as they faced limited food supplies and seasonal fluctuations that made the island's resources even scarcer at times. But Magyarosaurus was not the only dinosaur to shrink in response to Hateg's isolation. Other herbivores like zalmoxes, a smaller ornithopod dinosaur, also displayed signs of insular dwarfism. Zalmoxes was about the size of a large dog, much smaller than its relatives on the mainland. Its reduced size enabled it to thrive in an environment where food was less abundant, and its smaller frame made it more agile, allowing it to navigate the dense forests and brush more effectively. While most herbivores were shrinking, the carnivorous inhabitants of Hateg were also affected by this phenomenon, albeit in different ways. The island's unique conditions led to the emergence of smaller predators like Balor bondok, a bizarre raptor-like dinosaur with a compact and muscular build. Balor bondok was equipped with unusually large, retractable claws on its feet, much like its larger dromaeosaur relatives on the mainland. However, it had evolved a more robust and powerful frame, adapting to a diet that likely included smaller herbivores and possibly even invertebrates. The phenomenon of insular dwarfism wasn't the only interesting evolutionary development on Hateg. While some animals shrank, others experienced what is known as insular gigantism, where the lack of competition and predators allowed them to grow larger. This was especially evident in the island's pterosaurs. While dinosaurs were shrinking in size, the pterosaurs of Hateg were evolving into some of the largest flying animals in history. The giant Hatzegopteryx, a member of the Azhdarchid pterosaurs, grew to have a wingspan of nearly 40 feet, larger than many modern fighter jets. These pterosaurs evolved to dominate the skies of Hateg, filling the apex predator niche left vacant by the absence of large theropod dinosaurs. The contrasting patterns of dwarfism and gigantism were not merely random occurrences. They were adaptive strategies that evolved over millions of years as a response to the island's isolation and limited resources. Herbivores like Magyarosaurus and zalmoxes shrank to conserve energy and resources, while the pterosaurs expanded their wingspans and ground-dwelling predators like Balor bondok evolved stronger muscles and specialized claws to hunt smaller prey. What is remarkable about the animals of Hateg Island is how these evolutionary strategies allowed them to thrive in an environment that was both challenging and isolating. The island's small size and limited resources created a unique set of conditions where the ordinary rules of evolution seemed to bend. Here, animals that were usually prey on the mainland could dominate, and giants that were once massive were forced to become small. Over millions of years, the isolation of Hateg Island transformed it into an evolutionary crucible, producing creatures that were unlike any seen elsewhere in the world. From dwarf sauropods to giant pterosaurs, the island was a hotbed of evolutionary innovation. This small tropical paradise in ancient Europe was home to a collection of animals that defied conventional logic, adapting in strange and surprising ways to the challenges of island life. While the herbivorous dinosaurs of Hateg Island were shrinking in response to the constraints of limited resources, an entirely different phenomenon was occurring in the skies above. The isolation of the island did not just lead to the shrinking of land-dwelling dinosaurs, it also allowed the rise of colossal flying predators. These airborne giants not only shaped the island's ecosystem, but ruled it from the air with a dominance that was rarely seen in other parts of the world. Among these rulers of the skies was the terrifying Hatzegopteryx, a pterosaur whose sheer size and hunting capabilities made it one of the most formidable predators of the Cretaceous period. Hatzegopteryx, whose name fittingly means Hateg wing, was a member of the Azhdarchid family of pterosaurs. This family included the largest flying creatures to ever exist. What set Hatzegopteryx apart was not just its impressive wingspan, but its unusual combination of features that made it a true apex predator. With a wingspan estimated at nearly 40 feet, it rivaled the size of a small airplane or a modern fighter jet. However, it was not just its size that made it remarkable. Its body was designed to hunt large prey, and in many ways, it was more akin to a terrestrial predator than a flying one. Unlike many pterosaurs, which relied heavily on flight to cover vast distances and catch prey, Hatzegopteryx was built to dominate both the air and the land. Its wings, while enormous, were complemented by an unusually thick and robust frame. Most striking of all was its head, which was both massive and heavily reinforced. Measuring over 8 feet in length, about the size of a horse, its skull was one of the largest ever found in any flying creature. This immense head, paired with a powerful neck that was packed with muscle and ligament, made it an efficient hunter capable of delivering lethal blows to its prey. The massive size and robustness of its head suggest that Hatzegopteryx hunted in a unique way. Rather than diving from the air to catch fish or smaller animals like other pterosaurs, it likely patrolled the island's forests and clearings, stalking its prey from the ground. Paleontologists believe that its primary hunting technique involved using its height and vision to spot potential victims and then delivering a powerful, stabbing strike with its beak. The compact and heavily built nature of its head implies that it could withstand and deliver tremendous amounts of force, allowing it to kill prey with sharp, bone-crushing blows. What's even more fascinating is that Hatzegopteryx's hunting style was not solely reliant on its aerial capabilities. It likely spent much of its time on the ground, using its towering height, comparable to a giraffe's, to spot prey over tall vegetation. This ability to alternate between terrestrial and aerial hunting made Hatzegopteryx a versatile and highly effective predator, able to adapt its strategy based on its environment and the prey available. In many ways, it was more of a terrestrial terror than a simple flying predator, using its powerful limbs to move quickly on land and only taking to the skies when it needed to scout or cover large distances. Hatzegopteryx wasn't alone in the skies of Hateg. Other large Azhdarchid pterosaurs inhabited the island, each filling different ecological roles. Among them was Aladarko, a slightly smaller but still formidable pterosaur that boasted a wingspan of up to 23 feet. While not as massive as Hatzegopteryx, Alodarko had its own unique adaptations that made it a fearsome predator. With a more agile frame and a large, sturdy skull, Alodarko was well suited to hunting medium-sized dinosaurs and other small animals. Its powerful beak, equipped with sharp edges, suggests that it was capable of delivering both stabbing and slashing attacks, making it an efficient and opportunistic hunter. Despite its size, Alodarko may have relied on different tactics than Hatzegopteryx. Analysis of its leg and wing structure indicates that Alodarko was a highly terrestrial creature, spending much of its time prowling the island's landscapes rather than soaring over them. Its long legs and wings suggest that it was a capable runner, and it likely used its agility to ambush unsuspecting prey. Paleontologists speculate that Alodarko used its wings not just for flight, but also as stabilizers while it delivered precise strikes with its beak. This combination of running and striking made it a deadly force, able to pursue prey over land and deliver quick, efficient kills. These giant pterosaurs of Hateg were unlike anything seen on the mainland. The evolutionary pressures of the island led to the development of creatures that not only reached extraordinary sizes, but also adapted their hunting strategies to fit the unique environment of Hateg. The absence of large theropod dinosaurs, combined with the limited competition from other carnivores, allowed these pterosaurs to fill a niche as the island's apex predators. It is likely that their dominance was further solidified by the phenomenon of insular dwarfism affecting the island's other inhabitants, reducing the size of potential competitors and prey. The concept of insular gigantism and dwarfism played a key role in shaping the dynamics of Hateg's ecosystem. While the land-dwelling dinosaurs shrank in response to limited resources, the pterosaurs expanded in both size and dominance. This created a unique predator-prey dynamic, where the largest and most powerful creatures were not terrestrial dinosaurs, but flying giants. The lack of large predators on the ground allowed these pterosaurs to become the apex hunters of the island, evolving features that enabled them to hunt effectively on both land and in the air. One of the most significant questions surrounding these pterosaurs is how they managed to grow to such enormous sizes. The evolution of gigantism in Hatzegopteryx and other azhdarchids is a subject of ongoing research and fascination for paleontologists. The prevailing theory is that their isolation on Hateg, combined with the lack of large theropod dinosaurs, allowed them to occupy an ecological niche that was unavailable to them elsewhere. This, coupled with the limited competition and abundance of smaller prey, created the perfect conditions for these pterosaurs to grow to unprecedented sizes. In addition to their size, the giant pterosaurs of Hateg displayed unique adaptations that set them apart from their mainland counterparts. For instance, the bone structure of Hatzegopteryx and Alodarko suggests that they were capable of withstanding tremendous forces, both in flight and on the ground. Their long, powerful limbs were not only suited for launching into the air, but also for running and delivering crushing blows to their prey. This combination of flight and terrestrial capabilities made them highly versatile predators, able to dominate both in the skies and on the ground. Despite their impressive adaptations, the life of these giant pterosaurs was not without its challenges. The fossil record shows signs of injuries and wear on the bones of these creatures, indicating that their powerful hunting techniques came at a cost. For example, some specimens of Hatzegopteryx display heavy scarring and evidence of healed fractures, suggesting that they regularly endured high-speed impacts during their hunts. This evidence paints a picture of a predator that not only faced dangers from its environment, but also from its own methods of hunting. The presence of these giant pterosaurs on Hateg Island had far-reaching implications for the island's ecosystem. As apex predators, they played a crucial role in shaping the behavior and evolution of other species on the island. The constant threat posed by these airborne giants likely influenced the feeding and nesting habits of herbivorous dinosaurs, forcing them to adapt strategies to avoid becoming prey. For smaller carnivores and scavengers, the presence of these pterosaurs meant competing for leftovers and avoiding encounters with a creature that could easily dominate them. Ultimately, the skies of Hateg Island were a domain of giants, creatures that blurred the lines between land and air, predator and opportunist. These colossal pterosaurs ruled the island not just with their wings, but with their ability to adapt and dominate every facet of their environment. Their presence exemplifies the strange and unique nature of Hateg Island, a place where the rules of evolution seemed to bend, giving rise to creatures that defied expectations and pushed the boundaries of what was possible in the prehistoric world. Hateg Island's isolation created an environment where unusual and unexpected evolutionary paths were the norm. While the skies were dominated by colossal pterosaurs, the land was a battleground for a diverse mix of smaller yet no less dangerous predators. These ground-dwelling carnivores occupied an ecological niche that would typically be filled by large theropods on the mainland. However, due to the island's unique evolutionary pressures, these creatures took on forms and behaviors that were distinct from their mainland relatives. As the island's dinosaurs and pterosaurs adapted to their isolated home, so did the predators lurking in the shadows, each finding a way to carve out a piece of Hateg's precarious ecosystem. One of the most intriguing ground-dwelling predators was Balaur Bondok, a raptor-like dinosaur that defied traditional classifications. This creature stood out not just because of its size and build, but because of its bizarre evolutionary adaptations. Unlike its mainland counterparts, which often relied on speed and agility to chase down prey, Balaur Bondok was stockier and more muscular. Its legs were shorter and thicker, suggesting that it prioritized strength over speed. This muscular build was complemented by a set of unusual claws that were more robust than those of other theropods. Instead of the single large claw typical of other dromaeosaurs, Balaur Bondok had two oversized, retractable claws on each foot. Paleontologists believe that these large claws were adapted for a unique hunting style, possibly involving ambush tactics and powerful strikes. Rather than chasing prey over long distances, Balaur Bondok may have relied on stealth and its muscular legs to quickly close the distance between itself and its target. When it struck, its dual claws would have been capable of delivering a devastating blow, pinning prey to the ground or inflicting lethal wounds. This ambush hunting style would have been particularly effective in the dense forests and woodlands that covered much of Hateg Island. The vegetation would have provided ample cover for a predator like Balaur Bondok, allowing it to remain unseen until the last moment. However, Balaur Bondok was not the only predator roaming the forests of Hateg. There were also mysterious theropods such as Megalosaurus hungaricus. Despite its name, this creature was not actually a true member of the Megalosaurus genus, but rather a misidentified dinosaur that was likely a small theropod. This misclassification highlights one of the key challenges in studying Hateg's predators: the scarcity of well-preserved fossils. In the case of Megalosaurus hungaricus, paleontologists have only recovered fragmentary teeth, making it difficult to determine the exact size and behavior of this enigmatic predator. Current estimates suggest that it was much smaller than its mainland relatives, a consequence of the insular dwarfism that affected many of the island's inhabitants. Even so, it likely played an important role as a mid-sized carnivore, preying on smaller herbivores and juvenile dinosaurs. Adding to this roster of ground-dwelling predators were Hateg's ancient crocodilian relatives, the Evolutionaries. These semi-aquatic predators thrived in the island's lakes and rivers, taking advantage of their elongated limbs and powerful tails to navigate both water and land. One such genus, Alodopasuchus, was relatively large compared to other island predators, measuring around 10 feet in length and weighing as much as a large jaguar. Unlike modern crocodilians, which are primarily aquatic, Allodaposuchus showed signs of being well adapted to life on land. Its limbs were more elongated than those of typical crocodiles, suggesting that it could walk and even run in a terrestrial environment. This ability to move effectively on land would have made Allodaposuchus a formidable predator, capable of ambushing prey near water sources and pursuing them over short distances on land. Hateg's rivers and lakes, which provided essential freshwater for its residents, would have been prime hunting grounds for these crocodilian predators. As herbivores ventured to the water's edge to drink, Allodaposuchus could have waited patiently, blending into the muddy banks before launching a swift and deadly attack. The combination of semi-aquatic hunting techniques and terrestrial mobility made this predator a dominant force in Hateg's ecosystem. As the island's carnivores adapted to their environment, they were not the only ones benefiting from Hateg's unique conditions. Other small predators, such as snakes and primitive birds, filled niche roles within the island's ecosystem. Fossil evidence suggests that Hateg was home to a variety of snake species, including some that reached considerable lengths. One such genus, Dinosaur, was relatively small compared to modern constrictors, but its presence indicates a thriving population of reptiles that coexisted with the island's dinosaurs and other predators. Among the most enigmatic of Hateg's carnivores were the primitive birds, which played a crucial role in the island's food web. One notable bird species, Gargantavis, was an anomaly among Cretaceous avians. Unlike most birds of its time, which were typically the size of modern crows or sparrows, Gargantavis was a giant, standing as tall as an ostrich and weighing over 300 pounds. Its size and robust femur suggest that it was primarily a ground-dwelling bird, possibly foraging for seeds, fruits, and small animals. However, without a complete skull, researchers remain unsure of its exact diet and behavior. While Hateg's land-dwelling predators evolved in response to the island's isolation, the waters surrounding it were home to an equally diverse and dangerous array of marine predators. The shallow seas of the Tethys were ideal habitats for mosasaurs, giant marine reptiles that ruled the oceans during the Cretaceous. In the waters around Hateg, at least 9 different genera of mosasaurs thrived, making it one of the most diverse marine ecosystems in the world. Among these were species like Mosasaurus, Prognathodon, and Hinosaurus, which could reach lengths of over 30 feet. These massive predators patrolled the warm, shallow waters, preying on fish, other marine reptiles, and anything else that crossed their path. The presence of these large marine predators further contributed to Hateg's isolation. For land-dwelling animals, crossing the waters surrounding the island would have been nearly impossible due to the constant threat of mosasaurs and other marine reptiles. Even if an animal managed to swim beyond the island's immediate vicinity, it would still face additional dangers from large sharks and plesiosaurs that thrived in the Tethys Sea. This combination of terrestrial and marine predators made Hateg a challenging and dangerous place for its inhabitants, both on land and in the surrounding waters. For millions of years, Hateg Island thrived as a unique and isolated ecosystem, its inhabitants evolving in strange and unexpected ways. However, this precarious balance was not destined to last. Around 66 million years ago, the world experienced one of the most devastating events in its history: the impact of a massive asteroid that struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The asteroid impact triggered a series of catastrophic events that marked the end of the Cretaceous period and led to the extinction of countless species, including the dinosaurs. For Hateg Island, this event would prove to be the final chapter in its long and mysterious history. The asteroid impact unleashed a wave of destruction that swept across the planet, causing widespread wildfires, tsunamis, and a nuclear winter effect that dramatically altered the global climate. Hateg Island was not spared from this devastation. The fossil record indicates that the region experienced a massive tsunami, with waves likely reaching heights of over 30 feet. This cataclysmic event would have inundated much of the island, drowning its coastal inhabitants and leaving only the highest points of land above water. For the creatures that survived the initial impact and tsunami, the aftermath was equally grim. The dense ash clouds that circled the Earth blocked out sunlight, causing temperatures to plummet and disrupting photosynthesis. This led to a collapse of the island's plant life, which in turn affected the entire food chain. The impact of the asteroid was not the only source of destruction for Hateg. The region was also prone to volcanic activity, which may have been exacerbated by the global upheaval caused by the asteroid strike. Volcanic eruptions would have covered parts of the island in thick layers of ash and lava, further decimating the already struggling plant and animal life. The combination of tsunamis, wildfires, volcanic eruptions, and a rapidly changing climate created an environment that was inhospitable to the island's inhabitants. As the fires burned and the ash settled, Hateg's unique ecosystem began to unravel. The large pterosaurs, which had ruled the skies for millions of years, likely perished as their food sources dwindled. The dwarf sauropods and other herbivorous dinosaurs, already vulnerable due to their small size and limited resources, would have been among the first to suffer from the collapse of the island's plant life. The carnivores, which depended on these herbivores for sustenance, faced a similar fate as their prey became scarce. Even the crocodilians, which had thrived in the island's lakes and rivers, could not escape the consequences of the island's changing environment. In the end, the combination of environmental changes and the lack of food led to the extinction of Hateg's inhabitants. The fossil record shows that the island was eventually submerged under the rising seas, erasing the last remnants of this prehistoric paradise. Today, the only evidence of Hateg Island's existence comes from the limited rock formations and fossil deposits found around the town of Hateg in Romania. These remnants provide a glimpse into a world that was both beautiful and terrifying, a world where evolution took unexpected turns in response to the island's isolation. The story of Hateg Island serves as a reminder of the power of isolation and the fragility of life in the face of catastrophic events. For millions of years, this island thrived as a unique and isolated ecosystem, its inhabitants evolving in strange and unexpected ways. However, in the blink of an eye, the asteroid impact and its aftermath brought an end to this forgotten world. The creatures that once ruled the skies and roamed the forests of Hateg are now gone, leaving behind only fossils and the mysteries they contain. Hateg Island's legacy endures in the work of paleontologists who continue to study its fossils and reconstruct its prehistoric world. Each discovery sheds new light on the island's unique ecosystem and the creatures that called it home. From dwarf dinosaurs to giant pterosaurs, the story of Hateg Island is one of adaptation, survival, and ultimately, extinction. It is a testament to the resilience of life and the ever-changing nature of our planet, a story that continues to captivate and inspire scientists and enthusiasts alike.